Erev Tov, everyone. We find in the opening parshas of Chumash Bereishis that the Rabbanu Shalom Kaviyachol has entered into covenants with his creatures. So there is the first covenant, which is with Olam Harishon, Pru Milu Es Haaretz V'Kiv Shua. And that's a covenant that the human race will be able to control to a great degree what happens on this planet. And that Redu Bidgas Hayom Vashamayim, the human race will rule over the animal kingdom. So that's a very general covenant that embraces all of humanity. Everyone that was created, B'Tselem Elokim, is included in that covenant. In Parshas Noach, there's a second covenant, which is represented by the rainbow, by the Keshes Ba'onon. The covenant that the Lord, so to speak, agrees that the world will not be destroyed by a flood. That will not recur again. There's Kashti Nosati Ba'onon. And the bracha that we make on the rainbow is Zocher Abris, that the covenant exists. Now that also is a general covenant. It does not embrace the animal kingdom, but it embraces all humanity to the extent that people are aware of it, to the extent that the people understand the symbolism of the rainbow. In this week's Parsha, we come to a covenant that is much more narrow. It applies only to Avraham and to his descendants. It is Halech Lefonai Ve'yei Samim. Go before me, so you're my representative, so to speak, in the world. That's what is Halech Lefonai means. Ve'yei Tamim, and be whole, attempt to achieve perfection. A part of the perfection is in the human flesh. That there would be a brit in the person, in the male of the persons themselves. And that would be the Os Bris Kodesh. That would be the symbol of the Holy Covenant, because this is therefore not just a mental covenant or a spiritual covenant or an ideological covenant, but rather it's a covenant in the flesh of the person. It's an everlasting covenant as long as the person lives. And that became a basic fundamental idea in Jewish life till today. Lachniso beriso shel Avram Avinu, that every Jewish male child is brought into the covenant of Avram Avinu. And the Medrash says, the Gemara says that, for instance, that anyone that is circumcised, so Avraham Avinu, so to speak, stands at the gates of Gehenna and saves them, because within them, embedded in their flesh, is the Os Bris Kodesh, this covenant that says that they are special, that there is Salech Lefonai, and that therefore that is their sign of redemption. The Meshech Chochmah here says an interesting idea. At a bris, we say many psukim. One of the psukim is that the Moel says, "Sosanochi alim rosecha kamotzei sholol rov." I rejoice in what you have told me to do, kamotzei sholol rov, like a warrior that has found great booty. So the Meshech Chochmah illustrates it that in the midst of war, God forbid, or battle, if you capture the weapons of the enemy and you turn them against them, so that's like a double victory. Not only have you triumphed, but you've used their own weapons in order to destroy them. One of the things that happened in the 6-Day War, and then later even in the Yom Kippur War, is that the Israeli army captured dozens of Russian tanks from the Syrian and Egyptian armies. So much so that they made a whole division of tanks in the Israeli army, in the Chel Shirion, out of Russian tanks. And that's Kamotzei Sholol Rov. So here also we are taking the organ of the body, which is really in the employ of the Sultan of the Yetzer Hara, and we turn it into the weapon of the Bris Kodesh, of the Holy Covenant, that binds us to Avraham Avinu and binds us to the Rabbanu Shalom. We see how chaviv this mitzvah is, that throughout all of the generations, and in our generation as well, it's a mitzvah that Jews willingly and lovingly, they make a feast out of it, a simcha, to invite people to it. Even people who otherwise are, so to speak, not so observant. Because of the fact that that is, so to speak, the covenant that is embedded in our flesh. I remember, I want to share a story with you that when I was the head of my yeshiva in Monsey, so there was a period of time when every yeshiva was asked to take in a number of Russian young men in their high schools. Rabbi Neuberger, Zichrono Livracha of Baltimore, was in charge of the program, and he distributed them to all the yeshivas in America. And it was a challenge because, first of all, they were Russian and we were Americans, but more than that, they came from nowhere. Not only from nowhere, they came from the opposite. And how were we going to blend them in? So in our yeshiva also, we had a number of Russian boys, all of whom turned out magnificently. And after one was with us for, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, the Rabbeim came to me and they said, you know, so-and-so, he's doing so well and he's such a fine boy, but he's not circumcised. He's an oral. And we had arranged in Monsey then a program to circumcise the male adult Russians that came. So we had the staff at the urology department in the hospital with the anesthetics, was a whole thing. There were maybe 150, 200 britot of milah on adults, fine. Like here in Israel, they're in tens of thousands. And it's done quietly, so nobody knows. As long as nobody knows, everything is good. The moment you publicize things, you're asking for the troubles that come. Anyway, they said, this boy is not circumcised. What should we do with him? And he was doing very well in his studies and in the yeshiva and in the Limudei Kodesh. So I said, well, I'll talk to the parents. And I called in the parents and we discussed and everything. And the father said adamantly, no. No, I refuse to give permission. I waited another 2 months. I spoke again, no. Finally, it was already next year. I was sitting in my office and the boy came in and he gave me a letter from his father and mother that gave permission to be circumcised. And I made all the arrangements and it happened and it was fine and everything and wonderful. We made a kiddush. When the boy graduated, so he was second or third in his class, even though he started from nothing. And his parents came naturally to the graduation afterwards when it was all over. So I did something which I almost never do. It's not my business as to what people do or don't do. But I said to the father, I said, how come you changed your mind? You were so adamant the first 3 times I asked you, I stopped asking. What changed your mind? So he said to me as follows. He said, when the Germans came into our village, they took every male in the village and they stripped him. And anyone who was circumcised, they shot on the spot. I was not circumcised because I came from a communist family. I was not circumcised, I survived. Had an assumed name, they didn't know I was Jewish. So I said to myself then, if I have a child, I will not allow him to be circumcised because they'll come again. So when you asked me the first time, the second time, the third time, I told you no. But then he said, I saw how proud the boy is to be Jewish. And I saw what he is accomplishing. So I said to myself, when they come to shoot him, he will know why they're shooting him. So therefore, I'm allowing it to happen. That remained with me all of my years since. It's some nice 40 years at least. That's the Bris Kodesh. If you appreciate why there's a Bris Kodesh, so then it's meaningful. And then it's Kemotze Sholol Rov, a great accomplishment. And that's what the Torah meant when it said to Amram, Yisalech lefonai ve'yei tomim. Rabbi Chananya ben Akashi omer Rotzek HaBaruch Hu leZakos es Yisrael Leficha chirba lahem Torah mitzvos shenemar Adonai chavetz man tzidko yagdil Torah v'yadir.